Okay, the moment we've been waiting for. Now we're actually going to get into some actual painting in Mari 2.0. Now I know a few of you haven't actually used Mari, from my understanding, in some of the general discussion before this course started. That's okay. If at any point when I'm going through things, processes don't make sense or methods I'm talking about don't really click, send me an email and we can talk about it one-on-one, or during the webinars we can go through additional demos real time, and hopefully we can clear up some of your confusion. But like I said previously, Mari is a pretty straightforward program. Once you understand the architecture and how things are set up, the methods become pretty fluid and kind of second nature. So let's get started. I'm going to go and hide the eyes for a second. So as mentioned before in the previous demo, my first step now is I want to apply this tileable skin that I've created and assess it and move forward from there. So I'm in my Layers tab, and the first thing I want to do is create a tileable texture layer. Now in previous Mari versions in 1.5 and 1.6, you would have to do that through shader modules in the shader tab. But like we've discussed before, the shader tab now no longer is what we knew it to be. So now all this is going to happen in the Layers tab within our channel. And I'm just going to call this CalDev. It's kind of arbitrary name, but for me I like making sure it's a development layer for future use and stuff like that. So in here I'm going to go to my procedurals under pattern and tiled. Now it kind of gets cut off by the recording, so I can actually go up here, and I don't ever use this top down menu, so forgive me for looking. Here it is. So under add procedural layer, you're going to find a boatload of procedurals. We're looking for the tiled. And it's just going to bring up this little procedural window here, which looks very familiar to the previous versions. And I'm just going to load in my tileable texture that I created. And there we go. However, the scale is just a bit off for me. I want it to be higher frequency. So I'm just going to go down here and simply up it by 5. So now we're getting some really nice, fine kind of pigmentation on this skin. That because we did a good job with the UVs, make sure that all this stuff sticks real nicely on the ears and a lot of the curvature of the face. So within a couple seconds we already have really nice full coverage on this character. However, as you can see, it's not really working in some areas. We're getting some seams, but that's okay. We're going to clean that up in a second. But I just wanted to show you guys a quick way to get this tileable texture on your model and already have a really clean base to work from. Because I think in the old method that I used to use, projecting a lot, you had to be very careful on how you projected things, because ultimately you would get a lot of stretching on such an organic surface like a face. So there was some time that had to be dedicated to cleaning up some of the stretching in the projections. Whereas in this method, I can very quickly get very fine detail on this skin and know for a fact that I'm going to have really nice, clean, unstretched coverage all over this face, because of the UVs that I've done before and the fact this is a tileable texture. So this is going to save me a lot of time in the end, just in case in certain circumstances in productions that I've been a part of where you get certain angles that you didn't anticipate, and then boom, there's some stretching that you kind of overlooked because it's sometimes not an area that you typically see, and then you have to go back in and clean all that up with all those different layers, and it just becomes very time consuming and a bit of a hassle. So the first advantage to this approach is knowing that you have clean coverage over everything on this face, which really helps. And as you can see, it's a completely separate layer. and I'm going to rename this called Base Skin Tileable. But like I said before, this is not exactly the skin tone that I'm looking for. So before I actually change the skin tone, I want to go in and actually paint these seams out on the face. And there are two ways we can do this. We can actually use the clone stamp here, grab kind of an organic brush, and simply clone stamp out. But as you can see, we actually can't clone stamp on a non-paintable procedural. It's kind of one of the limitations in the new system, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this so I have an original for future use. I'm going to bring this guy down. I'm going to turn him off. And then for this one, I'm going to right click and convert to paintable. This is actually going to convert it from a procedural layer to an actual paintable layer. And as you can see, it switches from the procedural icon to the paint palette icon, which is exactly what I want. And from here, I now can go in and with my clone stamp, very quickly clone out some of these seams, like so. Now it might be a little hard to see where these seams are coming from. So what I like to do sometimes, if that's the case, is we can either do it in the layer or I'm just going to do it right on top. I'm going to create a levels and I'm just going to change the levels a bit. So you can see what's going on, like so. So now I can really see where these seams are coming from. I'm going to go back to my paintable layer, make sure I click that paint icon. I'm going to go back in and start cloning out more areas. Now this is one approach. We can just do clone stamp right onto the surface. What I found though is that in this case it's not such a big deal because it's this finer detail that we're going to end up layering on top of, so you won't really see what's going on. However, I've found that when you use the clone stamp, it does degrade the source that you're cloning from. So what I like to do sometimes is go in and use the paint through tool and actually grab the tileable skin that I loaded. And a nice feature about the tileable is the tiled layer is whatever you load into this layer here, it will automatically load it into your image manager as well, so you can pull from if you need to, which in this case is exactly what I need. And so I'm going to go in here, and what I've noticed from the paint through function is that it doesn't degrade the image quality that you're painting through with. So you're not going to worry about any kind of stretching, any kind of downrising of the paint. And I'm going to make sure I'm in my base skin tileable, and I'm actually just going to paint this down. And a wonderful thing about this is that, as you can see, what I'm painting down is the original color skin. However, because of this new system in Mari, and because there's layers, because we have a layers tab and we can do levels in different layers, we can now just paint on this base tileable and have this levels adjust real time. So this is 100% non-destructive, so I don't need to worry about color correcting my original source image just to use it. I can actually just use it directly from what I had originally, and the levels is going to pick up real time, this is an extremely powerful function, because in the previous versions it was a very destructive process, and any kind of filter adjustments that you want to do was all destructive. So it made it a really big inconvenience when you're trying to do something exactly like this, which should be so simple, but ended up taking a lot of time to do because of the destruction of the workflow. And ultimately, we typically always color correct or do some kind of filter manipulation to our original images. And to have this as a non-destructive process makes it incredibly quick and intuitive. And quite frankly, headache free. Because we're not having to do 4 or 5 extra steps just to get this on the skin. So I'm just systematically going through, finding my seams, and very gesturally painting them out. Because again, this is the base skin, so I'm not too worried about how all this is placing. I just want clean, even coverage, no seams, and then we can go from there. So what I can do is I can also select this entire head, go back to the paint through, and now I know exactly where my seams are, and I can quickly paint them out. So what I want you guys to do is create your tileable texture, set it to whatever scale that you deem appropriate for what you're trying to achieve, and then do exactly these steps and start cleaning it up and painting out the seams as your first step. Like so. And the other advantage to painting in this approach that I've found is that we're not going to be a victim or a slave to some of the discrepancies that you do get when you're projecting photos onto a model. Because typically most of the photos you receive, you'll notice that the exposures are slightly off, the lighting is slightly different, and it becomes a huge hassle, especially when you're trying to balance out the lighting out of the image and the shadows and the highlights and the reflections, that it becomes very muddy and cumbersome. And you don't get a nice, clean, even tone such as that. So this is nice and clean and even all over the face. And sometimes with projections, you just, because of not being able to clean it up perfectly, you get a lot of back and forth with trying to get the tones right from just a 3/4 view to the front view, and it becomes very frustrating and time consuming. So I found in this approach, basing everything, starting everything with a tileable, we really set ourselves up for some nice clean work, which I think will really serve to benefit us later down the line. Alright, so I'm going to delete this levels. Just hit the delete key. And here is my base skin. There are probably a couple other areas actually that I can clean up. Yep, like on top of this ear. Like so. But I think you guys get the point on the first step here. And it's just getting nice even coverage on your asset. And like I said, this is a technique that I kind of just stumbled upon out of necessity, and I'm definitely going to be using this more often when painting creatures and fantasy characters that aren't based off of real world things or based off of likenesses of actors, because sometimes when you are stuck to the likeness of an actor, there's not much you can do. So this process kind of goes out the window, But there are definitely steps in this process that when we start discussing more in depth about them, that they will become useful even on characters that you have to match to real world stuff. Because the key is to keep things as non-destructive as possible, because it's going to give you the most flexibility when you're working, and it's going to give you a chance to set yourself up for success when you send this stuff to review and they do want changes on the fly, and sometimes the deadlines are super tight. Having things in this non-destructive manner is going to save you a lot of time and really going to allow your abilities to shine as a texture painter, because you'll be able to be the one that gets things done efficiently and quickly, and you build your reputation off of that. Alright, awesome. So from here, before I continue, I want to color correct it to the Drow Elf tones that I have in mind. And let me actually bring those up. The one disadvantage to all this is that there are no thumbnails, so I'm just going to delete the ones that I don't want. Keep the ones that I do. Alright, here we go. So I want to go initially towards something like this. So I'm going to just drag that here and hit crop, and I'll get a new cropped image, and I'll do the same thing for this guy. Crop. Alright. So now I want to do a quick color correction. So what I'm going to do is, if I right click and go to Adjustment Stack, Add Adjustment Stack, the first thing I'm going to do is add a hue saturation value. This is getting cut off by the recording, so again I'm just going to go up here to Layers, Adjustment Stack, Add Adjustment Stack, HSV. And what's going to happen is it's going to pop up this icon here within the layer. If I click on that, it's going to bring up this little smaller dialog window. There's a pin that if you click that, it's going to pin this down. So if I drag off of it, it's not going to go anywhere. So if I unpin that, once I drag off, it disappears, which is kind of a, I'm not really a fan of this setup, but you know, it is what it is. So I'm going to pin that down so it's there. And so this adjustment stack is within this layer only, and it's only affecting this layer. Just like you would have, it's kind of a different, it's kind of more advanced in Photoshop. You can't really do this. You can't have an adjustment stack inside a layer in Photoshop. You can kind of group it and stuff, or have it linked to, which is kind of the same thing if you want to think of it that way, as this hue saturation value is a link to the base skin tileable. And from here, I'm just going to plug in some settings that I actually came up with before. So if you're wondering why I'm plugging in arbitrary numbers, it's because of that. Just to save me a bit of time. But ultimately, what I did was I just ended up fiddling with these tones so I can go closer to what I'm looking for. But I'm not done here. I want to add, on top of that, I want to add a levels adjustment. And in this levels, I'm going to change the input here. Again, these are numbers that I've already plugged in from before, just to save us a bit of time. And I'm going to go again and do a color balance. So as you can see, this is a lot like Photoshop, and this is 100% non-destructive. So this really gets us back to the roots of what we had before in the days of Photoshop. brightness I'm just change here, and one more saturation. There we go. So this is the base layer for my skin. It's a little bit far off from her, but this is kind of interpretation, and you have to remember that she has subsurface to her skin, so it is a little bit warmer than what this epidermal layer that I'm painting would be like. So I'm kind of, based off of my experience, I know that I want to go much more desaturated than this in the beginning. And ultimately I do steer clear from this tone, and we'll go through the reasons why I do that in later chapters. But currently what I'm just trying to do is get a nice base skin tone. And for me this works really well. So I'm going to close this up for a second and just take a look at this. So we're still getting some nice variation. We're getting some, in terms of fine detail, we're getting some of that kind of freckly look that I was looking for based off my original reference, and I'm happy with this. So I'm going to end this recording now, and then in the next time we're going to pick this up and I'm going to continue doing some more color adjustments to get my skin tone to the realm that I want.